It's the end of the day. It's time to close up shop. However, something tells you to stay back for a bit. For the next hour or two, you'll be staying after hours. Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Double After Hours podcast. And we got quite a full house today. And Brice back in the basement coughing just like the Thanksgiving show.
Yep. Is he sick?
The return of the classic.
Sick of this show.
The good classic.
Well, we have somebody on that will be sick of this in just a minute. But
I think he already is sick of this.
I think so too.
Yeah.
We are here with...
see he has a temperature of 102 right now. I can tell.
You can tell?
His face, yeah.
Okay. I am here today with Charles Robinson.
Sup, turd burglars.
Who has recently joined the workforce.
Yeah, he has.
I work for Jimmy John's now.
Nice.
I make people's stupid sandwiches.
Jonathan Johns.
You make the sandwiches?
Well, yeah, I do. I make the sandwiches. I wash dishes. I'm a driver. I'm a lot of things.
He's a busboy.
So you wear a lot of hats. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm also here with, first time in the new studio, Brice Kuskovic.
Howdy, folks. It's great to be back after, what was it?
March.
It's
been March. You've only been on for an episode.
Yeah.
Yep, first episode.
One episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, most important one.
Oh, yeah.
No, it wasn't.
No, it was.
It has the same amount of downloads as episode 3, so technically it's the same
Doesn't
importance.
matter. It's still the most important.
It's the worst one we've done so far.
It is. We have all as a group said it was the worst.
Yeah, we've all
one.
concluded.
I think it was the best one.
I think your taste is almost swore.
Family show. Family
That's
show.
cutting room floor.
Dude, $1 Million Butt is proving this isn't a family show, and you know that.
Oh, yeah.
After the diarrhea shower conundrum, I don't.
Yeah.
You smell a pie to a person's
After stranger butt sniffing, getting beat up by a horde of flying monkeys, getting destroyed for being on Spirit Airlines,
Oh, yeah. That was a whole thing.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
The
Aaron-
Spirit Center.
and drinking horse urine. How could we forget?
Yummy.
Yeah. The class. Oh. Okay.
Goes hard.
Okay.
Anyway, speaking of going hard, Shane, he's also here.
Shane
Yes.
Siegel.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
It's going all right. And the guy who definitely wants to leave by now, Stosh Zazz.
Hey!
Yeah, hey guys, how you doing? It's I'll just say what I said. It's Zazz.
That's
Could not be more like ready to leave.
One click of that end call button, and it's all over. The punishment's over.
I can't wait for the next reel on Zazz's show page, which, by the way, check out his show, The Zazz Show. It's a good time.
Absolutely.
But a subtle plug. Not really. It was a very not subtle plug. But anyway. I can't wait for like the reel where like the first one he made was like, guys, I would love to be on this podcast. I can't wait for the one where like he's bewildered. His hair is like in multiple places. His like shirt is like torn. No. He like has visible scars. Like he's like, guys, don't go on the Double After Hours podcast.
tortured.
I've seen some things.
I've heard some
Now,
things.
for context, this is me streaming in remotely, so if any of that happens, it will just show all the damage that's happening over at the Double After Hours show. Goodness.
Yeah.
Boy.
Thankfully, nobody's going to see any of our faces.
Well, not yet.
Not yet.
Eventually, we're
Not
going to get a
yet.
camera.
Oh, yeah.
Eventually.
So they can all see, all the people can see this wonderful studio we put
Bling
together.
Bling
Yep.
King Wario.
The bling King. Which you can see it on our
And my
social media
movie,
pages,
right
too.
there, Blade Runner. That's me.
You're not funny.
That's me.
Sit down.
I drive.
He's pointing at Ryan Gosling in case anybody thinks he's funny.
Yeah.
He's literally me.
I bought an Avatar James Cameron poster just to make Brice angry.
Because I hate those movies.
Dude, that's going to be a podcast, actually. Never mind.
But anyway, we're going to move on.
We were going to have you assigned seat like over here, so
Yeah.
you'd sit right next to it on the camera.
But I like this.
Now I just get to stare at the poster of Prince.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Maestro.
Oh, yeah.
Maestro?
Whatever.
Okay, can we just get onto the topic today?
That is actually how it's
Zazz
said
wants
sometimes.
to go onto the topic for today.
On with the show.
Speaking of Prince, greatest segue in the world,
Yeah.
we're talking about the evolution of movies and TV. And what do we mean by that? Well, this was kind of Zazz's big old epic idea, so I'll let him tell it instead of me yapping.
Yeah, so I said, man, and this is something I've been doing for a little bit of time now, just informally noting that, wow, movies and music, they used to be super, super high. We call it the golden age of Hollywood music.
Sure.
What. And suddenly we look at things and we say, man, it's not the way it used to be. So you look at movies, and there was once upon a time where people might not be able to remember, but it used to not all be franchises. And now everything is just a sequel to the sequel to the sequel to the sequel.
Yeah.
And typically the sequels are a complete mess up of what the original franchise was. So everyone's favorite one to diss on is Star Wars. The sequels. Look at the sequels as opposed to the original and then just the prequels. Everyone says, wow, that's just a complete mess up. Okay,
Cars
so we
2.
say, what went on with that? Okay, now that's the movies, right?
Yep.
Let's look at stuff like the music. You look at stuff from like the 70s or the 50s, and you look at the stuff today and you say, wow, everything is just kind of, for lack of a better term, white. You know?
I think that was the best term, actually.
No, it is.
Granted, George isn't here, so there's not a lick of diversity in this room right now.
Oh yeah.
Just a box of assorted crackers.
Heck yeah, dude.
Oh,
Yeah,
100%.
so
We're
you know,
playing
you
on the
look
Ritz today.
you look at the music and you say, wow, not only does it sound bad, but look at the people's voices. Things are just totally, have gone down. So I kind of wanted to see, is anyone on this train with me, or am I the only one who's looking and I'm the only one who's sentimental for the old days,
So I'm actually a big fan of like watching like the older movies, older shows.
Sure.
So currently I'm watching a show on HBO Max. It's called The West Wing. I think if you guys have ever
Yeah, I've heard of The West Wing. I've seen some episodes.
pretty good right now. I'm on season 4 right now, and it's pretty good. It's just about like what goes on in the West Wing of the White House, stuff like that, yada yada. But like all the stuff that happens is pretty interesting, and I kind of like watching like older like movies and shows. Like obviously with West Wing, that's an example. Trying to think of another old one that I watched, like Seinfeld, another good
Yeah,
one.
of course.
Full
Oh, yeah.
House.
No way, you just put Seinfeld and Full House in the same breath.
No.
That's a
crime.
You're
A
losing
crime,
your speaking privileges after that one.
Well, you know
Well,
what?
the
I'm
timeout
already-
chair's waiting.
No, I'm not going to the timeout chair.
Everywhere you
It's time.
Everywhere you look, Shane's going off the podcast.
Absolutely not. That is not going to be me.
But anyway,
Anyways, moving on. But I just like watching all of those older stuff because it's interesting. It's cool to see how they did it back then. While with today, it's somewhat easy to make their own like movies and shows because technology has advanced.
It's really, I don't know. In my case, when I think about new movies, and let's just talk movies.
we'll get to music later.
We'll get to music later.
We'll focus more on it.
Which, oh boy.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah,
It'll be
it's gonna
great.
a lot of fun. But just kind of focusing on movies, maybe a little bit of TV shows. I can't think of the last time that I really, honestly got excited for a movie.
What have you been watching?
I'm looking at the stuff I watch is mostly old movies because my dad wants me to get caught up on a lot of movies that I missed from my childhood that I was
It's in order.
He's
demanding you.
It was
doing
order.
it.
Yeah, it was in order. That movies that I was probably not allowed to watch as a kid. You know what? I'll include TV shows with this. Too.
Sure.
Okay, good.
TV I tend to watch more than movies though. I don't know.
Really?
I sure I will sit down and I will watch a movie. I don't want to say it's like I feel like it's a chore because it's not. And I'm not saying like, oh, it's attention span, it's gone. No, I do watch movies, just not as often as I watch TV shows. In the downward spiral,
The rabbit hole?
Well, not rabbit hole, more of just downward spiral of what I've seen with TV shows. Because Shane, I'm in the same boat with you. Seinfeld, I love Seinfeld.
It's great.
We all do.
I will watch that any day of the week.
That's a podcast we want to do. Honestly, I think what we're going to do with a lot of the TV shows that we want to cover in the future is
Yeah.
be separated
We
by
have a
seasons.
whole lot that we
Yeah.
can do.
like Seinfeld season 1. That's a podcast.
Right. TV shows like nowadays, if we're talking about cable TV, barren wasteland. Forget it.
Cable
right?
TV has been gone for years.
There is nothing I've seen, even on the major networks. There's nothing I've seen on there that interests me in the slightest.
Have you watched Abbott Elementary?
I have not.
It's very good, actually.
Is
Actually,
it?
I'd agree. I was watching a couple episodes with my mom, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is actually pretty funny."
As someone who used to be a cable connoisseur before I kind of switched to the streaming age,
Yeah.
ABC was kind of my network. Everyone
Okay.
kind of has their networks. Like for some,
Yeah.
it's CBS. For some, it's NBC. We were an ABC family, so we missed out on Office and 30 Rock and some other shows, but we did watch some other cool stuff. And one of the big things was, I guess, recently, to stay on topic, Abbott Elementary.
Okay.
And it's been one of those rare shows to kind of break the cable mold, if you will, because obviously, like, it's streaming like the next day or even like the same day on Hulu.
Of course.
That's a big thing. And obviously that's where Disney, who does own Hulu at this point, wants to make the majority, and most of ABC, if I remember correctly,
Yes.
wants to make most of their money. They want everything to be able to be streamed, or they want stuff to be streaming first. It's why, honestly, cable gets a lot of what's kind of seen as the leftovers. Does that mean there's nothing good on cable? No.
There's still
There's, like,
some good stuff.
The new Night Court, I guess not reboot, but like kind of sequel series they did on NBC. That's actually a fun show.
The one that I kind of got excited for, but I never really got super duper into it, was Quantum Break. Because if you know me, I love my time travel stuff.
I've heard of it.
Back to the Future,
I heard it was kind of weird.
my favorite movie. The original show, the original Quantum Break, is fantastic. It's phenomenal.
Zazz, what do you have to say about this?
Man, so it seemed like we were focusing a lot on TV shows, which fine, we'll take it TV. I can put it there. Honestly, I grew up watching things like Get Smart, Hogan's Heroes, and recently during the pandemic, Seinfeld. And so when I see all that sort of stuff, and then you look at kind of the stuff that's going on today, which I don't keep a lot, I don't keep up with a lot of that stuff unless it's the crime shows like Criminal Minds, which, by the way, I will make a side note on Criminal Minds. Criminal Minds was pretty good, and then it was like, oh, we got, Gideon kind of left, and we brought in a new guy named Rossi, and so, people started to leave, and people started to come and go and whatnot. And then after the pandemic, they come up with this sequel to it called Evolution. And I think this is something, it's a lesson, I think, that the industry of media and entertainment, just in general, has to learn. You can take an idea and you can make a sequel from it. Just don't kind of wash it and then use it again. Don't use the same template. Use one or two similar ideas and then put something new to it. What I mean is this, have any of you guys watched the new Criminal Minds Evolution, or is it just me?
Nope.
I'm not a Criminal Minds guy,
I've
so
heard
no.
of it. I've only seen a few episodes of it, but it's just not my cup of tea,
That's fair. So this is what they did that was good, is they took the whole serial killer vibe, but instead of doing a new serial killer every single episode like what they used to do, or some episodes where they would put one plot for every maybe like 3 episodes, they might do this kind of longer plot run. What they did is they did one huge plot run over a season, and they put little pieces of it. So instead of doing every new episode there's a new serial killer, it was every new episode there's a new puzzle to this one serial killer network. It was actually really, really cool because you followed one serial killer throughout the whole thing, and then it leaves you on a cliffhanger, what happens next, which is actually going to pick up in June. And so more thoughts on that as I watch it. But the whole idea is, if you're going to create a sequel to something, take one or two great integral ideas about it, change it up a little bit, and then you have something new, and then you have the familiarity. As opposed to what people do, where like they remade the film Get Smart. They made it a film instead of the show that it used to be. They used Steve Carell, which, fine. If you're going to use Carell and The Rock, great. You're keeping it alive, kinda, but how are you keeping it alive? Well, we're going to use some famous names, And you see a lot of that stuff happening in the movie industry today. I can't think of an example right now off the top of my head other than Get Smart. But what they'll do is they'll take... I know what they'll do. Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good example.
They said, oh... we're going to do another Indiana Jones, another last Indiana Jones movie. And you know what's going to make everyone want to see it? Harrison Ford, the guy who probably belongs in a wheelchair right now.
Yeah, right.
He's Red Hulk. What do you mean?
This is true.
I mean, hey, I love Harrison Ford as much as everybody else, but Star Wars, the sequels, that was kind of, honestly, in my opinion, his last great run.
He was actually his last womp with Star Wars.
Yes, his last womp to the womp. But I think, I don't know, what I say kind of stands. And if any of you guys would like to add to that, I'll open that up.
I was thinking about it. So I guess on the topic of Harrison Ford, we'll stay on him. I think you guys know my opinions on Indiana Jones and recasting. I think they should have recasted. Or at least in my perfect world, you play it up like James Bond, where each actor has their own continuity of movies. Like, obviously, each Bond actor isn't like this, like the same guy technically.
Of course.
I think they should have done that with Indiana Jones.
It would have been cool if it like showed his son becoming like,
no, because no one wants to watch Shia LaBeouf be a fake Indy.
I mean,
no one wants that.
Or maybe they bring back Short Round and make him the new Indiana Jones.
I wouldn't even be opposed to that, but what I am saying is that you can't just keep using Harrison Ford, as you said, Zazz, because he's older, and obviously with I forget what. Oh my God, Dial of Destiny, that was the new one. Ugh. But they did do a lot of work to try and like because I know there were some flashback sequences where they used
did
a ton.
de-age him.
Yeah, they de-aged him, and it actually didn't look that bad. Which sometimes you can really tell, like in Rogue One, where they made that Tarkin monster thing, where like you could totally tell. Or
Don't get me
Leia.
started on Rogue One Tarkin. That was just nightmare fuel.
Right, but. And I guess on the topic, like what we're originally starting with, Zazz, where again, like sequels and pumping out and nostalgia and all that stuff, it does very much feel like a lot of times we're maybe clinging to the past too much. And I guess to bring it to Star Wars, because I do think this is a very relevant example. Like, say what you want about the sequels, whether they're good or bad, this honestly doesn't really revolve around quality. It more revolves around the sequels never really found their own identity of what they were. Like, you can, like, again, I'm a guy who doesn't like the prequels and the sequels. I'm very unpopular, but...
Very.
At least with the prequels, I can say it's its own thing. You know, it's its own distinct era of Star Wars with its own distinct aesthetic, themes, designs, all that stuff. I can say that about the prequels. The sequels, there's a couple kind of cool ideas. I actually like Kylo Ren. Like, I actually think he's the best part of the trilogy. I don't hate Rey as much as everyone else does. I honestly think she's the worst in Rise of Skywalker because they clearly went against what was kind of cool about her, that she was a no one. I think that's cool. And a lot of people get angry about that, like, but Rey is a Mary Sue, she's stupid. And I'm like, listen, I'm not saying she's a perfectly written character. What I am saying is that I would much rather have a new Star Wars character not be related to anyone, be its own unique thing. And honestly, that's just Star Wars as a whole, because it feels like with... honestly, probably the biggest pop culture franchise that I think is in need of repair. It's Star Wars. 100%. At least with Marvel, the people at the top have admitted we made oopsies in the past couple years, and they're the underdogs again. They're not pretending they're some big thing anymore. They are genuinely trying to fix this nonsense, and I can respect that. It takes a lot of balls to say that your creative decision that you spent millions of dollars on in years that you messed up and you want to try again. I can respect that.
There is
Star
one
Wars,
thing-
I haven't heard one apology. I haven't heard one.
Now, okay,
Everyone,
Charlie, I'm sorry. I am sorry. There's your apology to interrupt, but
I didn't want it from you, Shane. I want it from Kathleen Kennedy.
Oh, she's never going to apologize.
Oh, I'm well aware. Fire her.
I was going to say something about... Now, Charlie, you did mention earlier about recasting, and one thing that I do remember was a few days ago, I rewatched all the Iron Man movies, and I remember from, like, between, like, the first and second one, they recasted...
War Machine.
And Don Cheadle, he did a great job. And I also noticed that in Marvel, they also did more recasting, like, in Endgame with Cassie.
Yeah, Ant-Man's daughter. Obviously, Hulk.
Yeah.
Used to be Edward Norton.
True, Hulk. Who else? I'd say Thunderbolt Ross, too.
Yeah, because he used to be William Hurt,
Yeah,
and then he
but
died.
he passed away 2 years ago, I
and now it's Harrison Ford, our favorite cripple. But anyway.
I do have some hopes for Harrison Ford as the Red Hulk.
But anyway, but my point is that what I think we're saying is, like, there's a lot of franchises out there, right? And to Zazz's point, there are a lot of sequels out there. But here's my take. You kind of have to search for the original, you know? And that is kind of where the blessing and curses of our new streaming era comes in. Yes, it is kind of cool to have all this stuff at your fingertips, but you kind of don't know what you want to watch. Like if you don't go on Netflix or Max with a plan of like, I want to watch this specific show or movie, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah. Oh,
like
100%.
not because like there's nothing good on there to watch, which trust me, there's some good stuff on there to watch. Just
gotta
find
go
it.
look for it.
I just watched Office Space the other night with my family.
Oh, finally.
Can't wait to do a pod on that. Phenomenal movie.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
And then I never said it was. I just haven't watched it yet, but and I have. Then that was from 1999, made by Mike Judge, same guys as Beavis and Butthead. Very fun movie. If you want to watch it, I do recommend it. It's a kind of an older classic, ton of fun. And then last night, I watched a newer movie with my family from 2016, The Edge of 17 with Haley Steinfeld. Also, a very fun movie.
It is.
Are there a lot of differences between how they were made? Of course, one was 99 and one was 2016. But at their core, the reason both of those movies I think work so well are its characters. That's the unifying draw that has all of these movies. And it's like the fact that, again, a lot of eras of film, we can go into it. Again, I would love to talk old movies. One of my favorite movies recently that I have seen is His Girl Friday. Like an old style kind of comedy that's still in black and white. Very fun movie, I do recommend.
Black and white movies are really good.
But again,
Gone with the Wind.
sucks. But but the unifying factor is character. Because that's why we go to see movies and like TV. We go to see these different worlds of characters, right? At least that's what I think. That's how we get immersed. That's how we get immersed in like these kind of stories. Because if we don't care about the characters, then why should we care about what's actually happening in them? That's what I believe is the biggest pitfall of a lot of modern movies occasionally, because they either try to make their character way too perfect, and I'm not trying to start some kind of like, oh, you made the character. It's not, because again, flawed character, it's a hard thing. If you give a character too many flaws and nothing to root for, then what are you going to do? But if you give a character too little flaws, there's nothing really to hold them back, which is why a lot of people got mad at Rey. Because largely they didn't think she had enough flaws. I'd be inclined to agree. Agree. That's all, folks. But that's
So loud.
Good. I hope it is.
Aaron,
But-
I'm so sorry.
No.
and that's why I think a lot of people are disconnected from a lot of other movies and franchises. The reason the DCU never took off the ground is because no one cared about, well, not no one cared about, but not enough people cared about that version of Superman or Batman. People cared about Wonder Woman or Joker, or, well, they cared about Harley Quinn. But again, like, they didn't care about everyone the same way as when the MCU started. People really cared about Tony. They really cared about Steve. They really cared about Thor. They really
Except for Thor: Love and Thunder.
and Thor 1 and 2. There's actually only one good Thor movie, by the way. But anyway.
His eyebrows.
Yeah.
Dude, Thor's bleached eyebrows in Thor 1, take me back. But anyway, and I think that's one of the big things that kind of stops a lot of either modern shows or movies from kind of breaking that mold, is because we need to care about the characters. That's why I think Abbott Elementary is actually really funny, is because these characters are just insanely entertaining to watch. Like, sure, it's a goofy show and some things maybe like you have to extend your like extension of disbelief a little bit. But like, if you really like the characters, your disbelief and how much you're willing to like extend it, it's a lot easier than if you go into something and you just don't care. If you love like what the world you're seeing of the characters you're watching, then you're allowed to like look over a couple of nitpicks and plot holes because you just want to be along for the ride. That's what I think the big issue is. Let's move on to music.
All right.
Oh boy.
Music.
Brice, and I will take the reins.
Yeah,
now.
this
Charlie
is
and I
much
are
more my
movies and TV. Bryce and Aaron
and Stosh.
are-
Stosh
and-
is the jack of all
Zazz.
trades on this
That is
episode.
true.
Hence
Stosh,
it being
you mentioned earlier that with music, a lot of the people kind of either sound the same or not as good. What do you think is kind of the cause of that? Do you think it's because their vocal range doesn't have to go as far as they used to because of technology? Do you think it's a personal thing? Do you think it's just a way that with popular trends are going? Like, where does this take come from? Not like to like confront you, but just I'm curious.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I think definitely you look, and I think you hit the nail on the head with technology. Technology is crazy. I mean, look at now. We can do autotune in concerts. We can autotune. It's the magical. It's the magical thing which erases all the vocal mistakes until you sound like a computer. Because honestly, it says, "Hey, look this. If you make a mistake, we can cover it. Don't worry." Then you say, "Okay, wait a second. If I can sing and possibly get my mistakes erased, well, what if I just kind of don't put as much effort into the singing and I focus on some other things?" Because it takes a lot of time. Vocal lessons, that takes time and money.
Yeah.
100%.
If I can bypass it, and I can just invest, $300-$600 in a software that I can kind of apply the auto-tune to my voice and stuff like that, and then I don't know how this is going to get kind of progressed, but with AI, as it becomes more immersive and stuff like that, people will train less and less. Now, I'm not trying to do one of these crime of intents where I say, aha, this is your exact reason why you do this. No, I'm just saying there is a correlation here between as the technology goes up, the quality just goes down. And I think that when it comes to the computers, people are making computerized music. People are buying these synths and stuff like that. They're sitting at home, they're typing in their things or whatever. They're playing out different rhythms, they're copying and pasting. There's not much of a practice regime. Now, what I will say is, we have musicians who are writing their music and they're recording their music. A good example of this, and someone who is very divisive, is Taylor Swift. She writes her music, she records it. It still sounds pretty mid, in my opinion. But at least she's putting in, at least instead of like shying away from the vocals, which I don't think her voice is anything special, at least she's sitting down and she's saying, okay, I'm going to write this. Like,
Oh, totally.
props to creativity. But you look at a lot of people who just say, and they'll even do this. They'll go to YouTube, they'll be like free beats or whatever, and they'll put whatever in.
Yeah, of course.
And
All
I mean, you
around
look
the
at-
beats.
yeah, you look at EDM and whatnot, and it just, you don't see as much creative flair as you look into a song like "If I Could Read Your Mind," from the '70s. By Gordon Lightfoot. That's like, wow, listen to the strings there. You can actually hear all the different parts of the music. And I was looking up, is there anything that what I'm saying, is it substantiated? And I went to a blog and see if, hey, does someone have a thought that kind of makes sense? And it talks about how in 2012, the Spanish National Research Council ran 500,000 samples of music from 1955 to 2010 through an AI program to answer the question about, is music getting worse? And it measured the music samples in the 3 distinct categories of harmonic complexity, timbral diversity, and loudness. Now, timbre, that's the texture, that's the tone.
Right.
And essentially what they found is that the harmonic complexity has decreased. It makes the music kind of sound a little more homogeneous, this article says. Timbral diversity has also dropped exponentially after peaking in the 1960s. So modern music is less deep and rich. It's less complex. It's more kind of elevator background music. And the loudness has increased. So what you find is that volume takes precedence over quality. Because, hey, if we say the same thing in varying degrees of volume, maybe you'll listen. And you can listen to more of it and not necessarily have to care about the quality as much. Because, by the way, these songs are getting shorter, so we'll just put less effort into it. Because it's not like you're going to pay a ton of attention anyways. And so I feel like this attitude has started to lead towards a decrease in the quality of music. And that's just my thoughts.
That's something you mentioned, loudness. Does that correlate at all with the loudness wars with singles in the 60s, in the 50s and 60s?
Oh man, I have not studied the loudness wars enough to deliver a verdict on that. What are your thoughts on that?
So you mentioned music getting louder, and yeah, I do 100% agree with that. But in the 60s, the loudness wars are basically these record companies. You would have jukeboxes, and the jukeboxes would play your 45s. Literally play physical 45s for the youngsters. Nowadays there's CD jukeboxes, but we're just going to focus on
the original jukeboxes.
The original OG jukeboxes. And so if your jukebox was in a diner and say you were an artist, you released a song and your record came on, and after your record was another guy, it's like, artist A, his record was like normal volume, and artist B, his record was like super loud. Like they're called hot mixes. Basically, they're all the volume, the limiter, everything, just crank it up. And that's why a lot of songs, when we did the show at WPON, a long while ago, feels like forever.
It's only a couple of weeks ago we ended it.
I know, but it feels like a while.
Aaron, don't be sentimental about it.
I'm not. I hate
Good.
WPON. Perfect, you're right. Anyways, we used to, when we play. Sometimes we play 45s on there, and a lot of people were like, wow, that is loud. And yeah, it is, because those were specifically made for jukeboxes and for diners, so that your record was heard over somebody else's record.
Right.
And so think you're in a loud diner. Think you're at you're at the Hop, right? It's got to be loud.
Okay, Grandpa.
Yeah, I know. Thinking
You're at
in
the
terms
soda
of 50s
shop.
yeah, there you go. Exactly. It's got to be louder than the others. So that's what I mean in terms of loudness.
So
Yeah.
there is one thing before we move on, is
Sure.
that my sister's now husband, his father actually has an old, like, a restored
real one?
jukebox. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
It's super cool.
Sweet. Got to get some 45s for it.
Dude, honestly, it's...
We'll
dude,
test the loudness wars in here.
Move the whole jukebox down to the basement, Aaron.
Exactly.
Wow.
Take it over. It's ours.
Dude,
You're doing it on your own.
Hey, we gotta
Yeah.
move.
Yeah, I'm not
we gotta move Bolt in his chair and the
No,
Gone
Bolt
Fish-
stays.
No, both stays.
Okay, I sense a
Yeah.
really weird fight brewing, so I'm going to intervene here. Real quick on that. Firstly, the AI, that was a really interesting point that you brought up, and something
Yes.
I wanted to talk about is AI, like, there's a lot of people nowadays who are, in a sense, afraid of AI being in music, right? Like,
Right.
you
Of
look
course.
at all these programs where you can throw a couple voice clips of somebody talking, and it'll render a perfect rendition of them singing the song, right?
Yeah.
You can look all those AI covers
I mean,
all
they're
over
not
YouTube.
perfect.
They're not perfect.
No,
They are
no,
not.
Yeah,
no,
like,
but
the Hitler voice AI covers are not
but
perfect.
okay, no, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There are so many of them where you cannot tell. So many of them are perfect.
There was actually the new Beatles single.
Yeah, that had AI,
yes.
right?
Yeah,
It had
they did
it had
have
AI,
AI.
but the AI was not used in the way that everybody thought it was.
Yes, it was only to finish a couple verses.
It was to, well, actually, no. All the lyrics were done. It was on a demo tape. The AI was used to remove background noise and like background instrumentals
now something
to put
like
everything
that,
together.
Like, I'm fine with AI if AI is being used to remove background sound,
To like enhance.
If it's a tool,
it's used as a tool, it's fine. But if you're using it to manipulate a person's voice, make
of
him
course.
sing something like that, then it's criminal. I do not like that at all.
I would say, honestly, let AI come into music however people want to use it. The same. No. Hear me out.
Okay,
Hear me out.
you did not start that statement well.
Yeah.
My justification is if it's the same as autotune. The people who abuse autotune, overuse autotune,
Yeah.
it's the same effectivity. It's not real. It's not real
But you can
skill.
tell with
It's not
autotune, though.
Okay.
You can very much tell. With
But-
AI, like you said previously on this podcast, there's a lot of covers out there
Yes.
that are perfect.
Covers. But if AI tries to write music, what emotion is it going to have that's going to actually connect
No,
with
it's
somebody the
terrible.
same? Exactly.
But it's going to get better.
okay, but it's
Slowly,
not going to
slowly,
ever match
slowly.
human emotion. There will never be a comparison between. I will
Sure,
bet money on
creatively,
it.
I'd agree with you.
So
but
that's what I'm saying.
corporately,
Corporately,
there is going to be a lot of executives who can say, well, if it's good enough, it's good enough. Like what Zazz said.
Until-
if the loudness is the only factor, and this also goes for a lot of movies and TV as well, if the loudness or the pure pop or the pure kind of whatever is the pure factor, that's what's going to win if people don't push back now.
you do that until you realize the real artist with the real skill and the real emotion and the actual talent to play and to sing.
People aren't going to realize that until it's way too late.
No, it will surface way higher than I will bet money on it. And the other thing is about the music getting shorter. That is something I've noticed too. You look back maybe 10 years ago, a hit song was about 4 minutes, maybe 3.5.
Yeah.
There are
You
some
look at-
old songs that are like
Purple Rain is like 6.
yeah, 6 or
Yeah.
7 minutes.
It is 7 minutes.
And you
I
look
had to play it
now,
today.
Another example is AC/DC's "It's a Long Way to the Top" if you want to rock
Yeah,
and roll.
that's a
that
long
one's
way.
like 5 minutes.
most AC/DC songs are super long with
Yeah,
either
Rocket Queen is.
with either a real long intro. Yeah, Rocket League, Rocket Queen, Paradise City, Welcome to the Jungle, Sweet
just
Child
have
of Mine.
Keep
a lot
naming
of,
everything
like,
off that album,
a
Brice.
lot of
I mean, the more I think about it, the more My Michelle, they're all longer
Right.
songs. But now you look at a hit song, it's about 2 minutes, maybe a minute and a half.
maybe
Well,
30 seconds.
I've heard a couple minute and a half songs recently. I'm like, what are they doing?
Well, here's the thing. Music way back in the 50s and 60s used to be like that too. Singles were pretty short. I mean, you look at most of the Motown catalog, it's like 2.5 minutes.
because of just like all the storage they only had on like one.
Right,
certain
of course. And
piece
of
physical
course that
media.
was Motown. But, we're talking about other record companies too. You had Atlantic Records was a huge one. You had the other soul labels. You had Stax Records. You had all of those. All of those. They were producing pretty short songs. And once you got kind of into the late 60s, of course, The Summer of Love was a huge deal. Psychedelic music took that. It took what they were doing now, and we're like, yeah, make that 17 minutes. That's where you get Inagata Vita. 17 minutes. That's not saying for every song was 17 minutes, but songs tended to go longer and longer as AM Top 40 started to become a thing. And then, of course, that led into FM Top 40 once FM radio kind of came around and AM radio was kind of seen as the, yeah.
and it's going downhill as
one
we speak.
Yeah, it is.
The one more thing I want to cover that was briefly touched over is that music quality is decreasing. It's not a quantity over quality thing. It's a music stopped being an art somewhere along the way and it started becoming formulated. You look, all of the pop songs nowadays have one of the same couple messages. You can look, it's either a love song, a breakup song, an I have depression song. It's something along those lines. It's got the same couple chords in the major key, and it's all written around the same basis. You know what I'm saying? It's formulated, and it's no longer an art. It's this. I can write a hit. I'm going to be a millionaire because people are going to stream my song. Nobody's going to actually know who I am or what I'm writing about. They're just going to hear my song, stream it. I'm going to get rich. That's why I hate all those big LA writing sessions where all those big like pop superstars go to write music and all that, because they're not writing actual songs or anything anymore. They're writing hits, and you can't just write a hit. If you look at any hit throughout any other time in history, whether it's Sweet Child of Mine, whether it's More Than Words, whether it's any song that Queen wrote that was a hit, it was just a song that they wrote. that became a
Yeah,
hit.
Africa by Toto was just kind of thing they did as a joke.
Exactly. And then that's where it's like, oh wow, this is great. Let's listen to this. Let's enjoy this. Let's appreciate this because it's an art that people loved and connected with. That just doesn't happen anymore because people decide.
So you think there's no musicians right now who want to do this as an art form?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
Because that's the way you were phrasing it.
there's too many that aren't like that.
Okay.
I will say somebody who is very popular, who is a real musician, who is popular. I'll get to just as soon as I say this real quick. Sorry, is Post Malone. He has a passion for the music. You can tell his songs aren't all the same. He's touched a lot of different genres because he enjoys the music. Versus, I'm just going to say it again, Taylor Swift, she doesn't. She is completely unoriginal. She recycles everything she does. And yes, I'm going to go on a bit of an anti-Swifty rant here. She just has a cult following, and that's why she's famous.
100% agree.
Zazz, you had your hand up because
Zazz,
again,
what
he's on
would
a.
you like to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, Brice, I wanted to comment on something you said. You mentioned that songs today, they just have one or two themes. It's the, yo, I'm happy, go crazy, that type stuff. Or, hey, I'm in love, so it's a love song. Or it's a I'm depressed type song. So you have three general types of messages. And you did have those back in the day. And so you say, okay, so what's different? What went wrong? And what I say is the difference is, like you said, it's stopped becoming an art. And now obviously there are some people who make it an art still. But you look at a song like, man, I don't know, Sweet Child of Mine you mentioned.
Yeah.
That has a great story. Now that is not like a love song, like a romantic love song from what I can tell.
It's not.
No.
It's a, but you know, it's love in another way. It's almost like familial love, in a sense.
Exactly.
But you get a message of love, but what is it doing? Oh, wait a second. It's telling a story.
Yeah.
There is an actual narrative happening there. It's, you know, what almost reminds me of, is, you know, back if we were in the medieval days,
Like a bard?
you know, yeah, bard, yes. Foreigner would be a bard, or whoever wrote that song. Because, okay, don't crucify me. I don't have it pulled up right now, and I tend to forget facts like that. So, but even so, people, I don't care if Foreigner, Guns N' Roses, whoever it is.
It was Guns N' Roses.
I'm in my Guns N' Roses t-shirt.
I was about to say, you are picking dangerous enemies, Zazz.
Foreigner did not write Sweet
Guys,
Child
did
of
you know
Mine.
Bon Jovi actually wrote Thunderstruck?
Yeah, actually, guys, my
Queen
favorite
wrote
Journey
Don't Stop
song is
Believin'.
We Will Rock You.
Did you guys know that my favorite Elton John song is
Take on
Centuries?
Me.
Beat it.
Goes hard.
Guys,
Anyway.
guys, I promise you I grew up listening to this stuff. But I've been listening to some more modern music recently to kind of see what's happening, and there's less of that storytelling aspect. I will say the only person, I mean, you mentioned some possible people these days who might be bringing it back to an art form like Post Malone. I am going to argue this, and this might make me instantly unpopular and banned from the show forever, but I think Benson Boone has something going. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying he's got it yet, but what I will say is maybe he's not telling a story, but look at what he's doing musically. He's got a very interesting genre form where he's taking different genres and he's putting them together. He starts off in this very kind of slow format for some of these new songs that are really catching fire on social media. The biggest example was Beautiful Things. That one is an overplayed song, I will say that. Slow It Down is becoming a little more overplayed, but they start out slow. They get to this point where it gets really high fast, and it comes back down, gets back up high, and then it just drops the song off, like off the edge of a cliff. And you're like, wait, where'd the song go? Wait, I want to hear the end of this. I want to hear more.
It's like the tempo change, basically.
Yeah, it's tempo change, but also intensity. So, for example, in Slow It Down, you know, he sings and he goes, you know, ah, and he's like carrying out this like really long, high, intense, powerful note, and then it just slows down, and then he does this one last very slow line, and it just kind of trails out like, you know, like smoke in a fire. It just trails out, and you're like, wait, where did it go? I actually kind of like that because it got me paying attention, and it had a cool beat. But, you know, you're lacking a lot of that in music. I only know of, you know, Benson Boone doing something like that. And then I listened to, because I was going to be like, wait, is Benson Boone the only one using some cool techniques? I listened to Ariana Grande's latest album, and I'm starting to hear this kind of theme that people, if they want to start attracting people to their new music, especially if they're kind of on danger of becoming washed out like Ariana Grande is and like Taylor Swift, except Taylor Swift doesn't do...
She's not going to be washed out for
this-
a while.
Just
Well,
Yeah.
I think Ariana Grande could be, because honestly, she's been around the block for a bit and she's getting old. Let's just be honest. So she started leaning into some more, what we would say, more toe tapping, kind of funkier, groovier, kind of elements to it. So you're like, okay, the music's making me nod my head, but that's the only thing that's carrying people now. If they can't find a message, they got to go back to the music itself. And we completely skipped over that back in like the 2010s, where it was just, Avicii's "Oh Wake Me Up When It's All Over." It's like, okay, well, I'm glad we're out of that, and I'm glad that we're kind of picking up some musical elements. But when are we going to go back to story time with songwriter? Because that was something cool. And I think that's why Noah Kahan, or Noah Khan, however you say his name, that's why he's getting a lot of popularity. He's starting to tell some stories. But also his music by itself, the musical elements are not, it's nowhere as complex as it was back in the 70s or 60s. Yes.
I have a point. So I guess because the big thing when you were kind of talking about when are we going to kind of get out of this era, it actually reminded me, and I'm going to like segue this into movies as well to kind of tie both into a bow. It kind of reminded me when CGI kind of first started. In that regard, when Jurassic Park first showed up and everyone kind of realized what exactly they could do with computers, it got abused very fast. Think about any disaster movie from the 90s, Twister, Volcano, there's like a bunch of volcano movies, Independence Day. There's a ton of movies that, quite frankly, I don't think are very good. I hate Twister, fun fact.
You're wrong.
Yeah.
I think Twister's
Really?
very bad. But
You're not going to like the sequel.
yeah, you're right, I'm not. But, well, maybe it'll be good. Who knows? I thought Top Gun 1 was just kind of okay, but I love Maverick way more. But anyway, that's my take. But
Okay.
again, and that's partially just because CGI was a very new art form, and a lot of stuff that we kind of already established from previous eras of film, such as storytelling, such as acting, such as all this other stuff, kind of got put to the wayside for a bit because we had this cool new little computer tool.
Yep.
But does that mean everyone treated it like that? No. There was a ton of people, including early Pixar, who looked at computers and said, we can use that to tell a story, but also make something that you've never really seen before, which is why a lot of their early stuff worked. Toy Story, Bugs Life, Monsters, Inc., Incredibles, etc., etc.
Cars.
They used the they used the tool.
Zazz, I wholeheartly agree.
They used.
I agree.
You weren't on that episode.
Yeah, you
Doesn't
weren't
matter.
there.
He listened.
One day a month. But my point is that eventually we got to a point with CGI. We're not fully there yet, but we got to a better point where it became, again, a tool. Again, it wasn't the thing that was driving a movie's sales. You don't really see a ton of movies nowadays be sold on the premise that it has CGI in it. If anything, I'd argue that's actually more of a detractor nowadays. That it's all computers. That's why a lot of Marvel movies get a lot of flack, because when their
She-Hulk, oh my
CGI looks
goodness.
bad,
She-Hulk
it
too.
looks really bad. There's some parts of She-Hulk that look good, but they're not all of
Absolutely
them.
not.
Not all. Dude, the last episode actually doesn't look that bad, but a lot of the other parts,
To each
you
his
can
own.
tell it's a TV budget that was being stretched a little thin.
To each his own.
But,
I did not like She-Hulk. I'm just going to put it at that.
Okay,
All the
but again-
episodes were mid.
but again, a lot of this is kind of coming back to we're putting a tool over some of the other parts of the art form. And then it kind of brings me back to music, where, yes, we do have all this really cool technology and very helpful technology for a lot of new artists to kind of figure out what they exactly want to do. But a lot of people kind of choose to go the easy route. But a lot of people who do choose to kind of do the more creative and interesting things, they are going to be gaining a following. Like you said, a lot of modern artists now, besides a few, of course, I know you said Post Malone, they're kind of doing a lot of cool things. And heck, I know, I'll just kind of express my punk rock fan. I think Fall Out Boy is still killing it. But anyway, I love Fall Out Boy, guys. And that kind of goes to kind of what their music sounds like. Like you said, Ariana, she makes you nod your head. I won't lie. A lot of her songs do make me nod my head. But I don't really think about them as much sometimes. Not because I don't want to. Again, film major, I love thinking about nonsense. It's what I like to do. But there is a lot of stuff where, like you said, there aren't some stories. But there are some songs that do have stories. Let me introduce you to JP Sax. He had
yeah.
Yeah, have you ever listened to 3 Minutes? I love that song.
No, but I've been listening to like a lot of his stuff. One of my favorite ones is Sing Myself to Sleep. Both his piano and his vocal version. It's like, and I looked into the story and I was like, wow, that's heartbreaking. And the music conveys that heartbreaking feel, although you don't know why until you look up the meaning. It's
Yeah, and
beautiful.
eventually I think we're going to get to a point where storytelling will eventually win, or not even just storytelling, just more interesting sounding music. Because when there's a trend, and this isn't just a movie or music anything, this is like in any industry kind of thing. When there's a trend, people want to hop on. It's why a lot of stuff from the 2000s sounds kind of similar. A lot of very grunge, kind of dark-ish kind of music. It's why a lot of 2010 sounded very poppy, very light, not very challenging. It's a lot of stuff from the 2020s, a little more electronic, a little more kind of, I guess, noise heavy, if that's the best way I can describe it, not necessarily vocals. Like, again, there are very interesting artists and filmmakers and people out there who do want to do really cool things, but the hard part is you have to look for it. I love looking for that kind of stuff because, again, that's just my personal thing. I love being able to find just all these kind of weird and cool musicians and filmmakers who are doing interesting things. And eventually, they will win. Everything Everywhere All at Once was a hit because it was doing something different and something cool. It's why A24 has become such a big studio now, because they're doing things that other studios would be too scared to do, have very character-focused kind of stories. And a lot of other musicians, I think we're going to get there. I think it's going to take a lot of growing pains. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what the next half of this decade is going to look like with how AI is advancing and all that stuff. And Aaron, you had your hand up.
I did. You said the new music becoming more electronic. Oh, there is an instrument I would like to talk about right now that I think has ruined a lot of music nowadays.
The recorder.
No.
I mean,
You're not wrong, but jeez. Let me introduce you to a cool instrument that I cannot stand. It is called the 808.
I knew it. I knew this was going to come up at some point.
Would you like to explain it to the class?
I almost brought it up.
Do you know what the 808 is?
No.
Okay.
I'm looking this up.
The 808 is the most god-awful instrument that has... Well, it's not an instrument. It's a computer. It's the thing that makes rap beats. It makes the drum parts in rap songs. Every single artist uses that. You think about rap groups, hip hop groups. I'm gonna focus on hip hop.
Run DMC
for a little bit. Yes, Run DMC.
NWA.
D12.
Yeah, there you go. D12. Wu-Tang Clan. I'll even go as far as saying Rob Bass. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was actually going to mention Wu-Tang Clan because I just got a notification from the news company and said that a secret Wu-Tang Clan album so rare that only a few ears have listened to will be played in an Australia museum.
I think that is awesome. I did see that story earlier. But you think about those groups. Those groups are all phenomenal when you listen to their tracks because they did a thing called sampling. Now, sampling was a huge deal in the first few bits of sampling started in the 90s. It was a thing with
it was
rap
a rap
groups.
thing.
Right, it was a rap thing. And of course that has sort of permeated to nowadays. The song that immediately comes to mind is Doja Cat's Paint the Town Red. Can't stand that song, but it does sample Diana Ross's Walk On By.
Exactly. Another one before you go on, Aaron, you and I were doing a radio show when you told us, or when you played the song, and it was from the song that you were playing.
It was from Eminem. Yeah. It was Lobby Cifre. It was I Got The. Yeah. That is it's phenomenal, and that's sampling. Now, I don't have a problem with sampling. I think when sampling is done right, it's great. Dr. Dre used to do that a lot, and his sampling was phenomenal. And you had drums. One of the most sampled songs of all time is the Winstons, Amen Brother. It is the most sampled drum beat in all of songs. You can look it up later. I don't know. I can't. Obviously, you can't play it on here. It's copyright, but it is the most sampled drum beat of all time. It's in like over 10,000 songs, right? But it's used well. It's in the Futurama theme, actually. The drum beat in the Futurama theme.
I get it now.
Yeah, it's that one. Again, it's been sampled everywhere, and it's great. But drums were sampled from everywhere. Mostly like a lot of really deep cut 60s songs and like covers from psychedelic bands. A lot of those were used in there. But nowadays, instead of actually putting in the work to sample a drum beat or sample anything in a song, it's pretty easy. You just push two little buttons here and instantly you have a drum beat that sounds like every other song on the air or on Spotify or on Apple Music or whatever it may be. It all sounds the same and it's lazy. And that goes back into what we were talking about. Lazy.
Right. And I think that's what the root of what we're kind of trying to get to with movies and music and all this other stuff is that what will eventually win? Laziness or hard work?
Hard work.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of parts of this world where laziness has actually led to good ideas.
Of course.
For example, in a weird way, being lazy has led to us, not having to go to the water pump and pour out a big old gallon in a big old tub every time.
Yeah.
Right? Because we want to find new ways to do things. That's the core of why we make a lot of what we do. We want to find new and efficient ways to produce.
Of course.
Of course, there's a little bit of soul that gets lost along the way. And obviously in some industries that's a little different. I'm not going to say the soul of pumping your own water is going to necessarily
Or pumping
translate
iron.
It's going to make it taste
to
better.
modern plumbing.
Yeah.
But you can argue that created a work ethic, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of, this podcast has been reminding of the phrase, I believe, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. If I'm saying the phrase correctly.
Yes.
Yeah.
In a weird way, I do think that kind of loops back around to kind of where we are. With music, there was a lot of people, a lot of trendsetters in multiple different genres who were trying to do something new and unique. I still think there's a lot of people out there in the industry who want to do that today. There are a ton of talented young and old musicians who want to do something cool, and maybe sometimes their music just hasn't been heard yet. Where that's because stuff on the radio that everyone's already heard before is blasting them out. They're maybe not portraying themselves the best online. They kind of properly utilize SEO to kind of get themselves to people's ears, or something in between. There's still a ton of talent out there that we still have to find. But there's also a ton of problems with how, like you said, with sometimes technology can kind of, I guess, substitute hard work, if that makes sense. I do think eventually hard work will win, but I'm going to tell you, I do think laziness is still going to stick around. This isn't something that isn't going away.
Yeah.
The only way it goes away is if people stop giving it money. That's the only way this will work. Listen, I'm a creative. I get it. I can speak about that stuff all day long. But there's a cold, hard fact in this world that, especially with the United States, if capitalism dictates laziness is popular, then it will always be popular. If capitalism dictates that creativity and hard work will make its way to make the bank, then it will. It doesn't matter. We need to choose what's popular. And we do that with our ears, we do that with our eyes, and we do that with, most importantly, our wallets. That's the core.
Of course.
It's always a money problem.
Yeah. TikTok.
What about it?
Don't get me started with TikTok.
I know this is
So
I love how everybody in the
Before we
room
go
just,
on,
Check out our TikTok page, by the way, the
yeah,
Double
by the
After
way.
Hours
Yes,
podcast.
of
We
course.
post
Yes.
funny things on there.
we contribute to the problem.
But I've also
No.
noticed on TikTok that I remember seeing this a lot last year of like AI covers of songs with like characters.
Sure.
Like, there was
Yeah.
one with I saw one. It's of Eric Cartman from South Park singing "Last Friday Night" by Katy Perry.
That's there's that. Obviously TikTok is a huge platform for, getting around, with getting that, sharing it around. That's what I'm trying to say. But what I was more referring to is the fact, or that the thing that TikTok and before that Musically was built on.
Right.
The music. You were making videos, or you could make videos with Musically was all about the music. You had to, you put a song in there, you do your dance or lip sync it, or I don't know, walk away. Whatever you wanted. It was your video, right? So TikTok and Musically became, this huge, TikTok of course became this huge deal, right? When record labels were like, okay, we'll bite, we'll put our music on there, sure, that's fine. Of course, YouTube, you put any kind of music on there, it will shadow ban you immediately. You're out. You're gonna get demonetized.
Copyright.
You upload a Beatles song, they're gonna come to your house.
But if you want a fun way to avoid the YouTube copyright system, I highly recommend Emperor Lemon's video on the very subject matter. It's a very fun watch.
Yes, it is. It is a great video about the YouTube copyright metagame. But with TikTok becoming this kind of the music video, the hybrid, right? You could make a video, you could put whatever music in it you wanted, and you wouldn't get copyrighted. Do you think that has helped these lazy songs even further than, say, if they played it on the radio?
Oh, for sure.
How much of an impact do you think it's had?
Well, TikTok is kind of one of the most popular services, I guess, socially that we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to get banned. I think someone's going to buy it. It's like if Walmart went out of business and Target didn't take some of the market share. It doesn't make sense to me. Someone will buy the company and turn it into something else or keep it the way it is. I
Let's
don't
hope
think
Elon Musk buys it.
I don't think the actual medium of TikTok or like whatever you want to say, short form videos is going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
I'd agree. And my take on the does it does it help them? How much does it help the laziness situation?
Yeah.
Is I'd say it's in a way the most genius way to help all the laziness, because it's how long are average like TikTok videos? I'm not on TikTok.
I mean,
is
depends.
it 15 to 30 seconds? I think.
I mean, sure. Some of ours we make go for almost a minute, but I generally try to keep it under a minute.
For an average TikTok, I'm just going to estimate 15 to 30 seconds. That might not be right, but just for the sake of my argument, it's like almost a commercial or a preview, right? Like in the movie previews, they show you the best parts of the movie,
Right.
or at least to try and grab your attention. They might do that with a song. They might play the catchiest part, the part that's got the best lyrics. They might play the chorus or something to kind of rope you and be like, oh, well, what's this song? And then you click listen. Well, if a ton of people do that, all of a sudden, even if the song sucks, enough people have listened to it once where it gets it trending and into the pop music filters and categories, right?
Yeah.
So it's just helping fuel that laziness, because a little bit of minuscule and minute effort just blew up only because of a couple people were curious as to what the rest of the song was like, if that makes sense.
But in a weird way, again, as someone who is trying to figure out the YouTube and TikTok and social media metagame, it's really hard to get your stuff trending. Like, let's not put it past some of these people who do genuinely put in the work to properly optimize some of their stuff for SEO and other search engine stuff, because as someone who's attempting to run the social media pages, I gotta tell you, it's not easy. Zazz can speak to that, definitely. He's been quiet for way too long. I'm sorry,
What do you have to say
Zazz.
about this?
No, it's okay. Yeah, I would definitely say I can totally agree with Charlie in every single respect of it is hard to manage a social media page. You have to, if you want to make it, people think, oh, you just got to use the right hashtags. Yeah,
You need
kinda, not really. Because here's the thing, I have an anonymous page that it does more. It's more informational content on just random things, and I had to have somebody who was big in that kind of arena. He had to share my page twice in order for me to get like 200 followers. And otherwise, I would use all the hashtags. I only get maybe 15 or so likes on a thing. And these are just regular posts. This isn't stuff you have to watch for a lot of time. This is just posts you can read, and a lot of them are memes too. So The whole idea is, if you want to make it somewhere out, it's not just throw up the hashtags or whatever. It's no, you got to pay money too. So everything is all about, bowing to the almighty dollar. If you want to make it somewhere, you can't do it for free. You're only gonna get about, maybe a block outside of town. But if you want to make it across the world, you gotta pair up, especially with music, with someone who actually has kind of a hand inside the whole game of, hey, we distribute music, or you have to hook up with famous musicians and their pages and say, hey, can you share my stuff? I'll share your stuff. Or you have to get the random pages, be like, I'll pay you $50 a year if you get me like 2,000 followers or whatever. It's so janked up. And so, yeah, as someone who runs a couple of social media accounts trying to get out to the public, it's really hard, and there's no free way to do it if you want to actually see success.
I
Spend
agree.
money, make money. Yeah.
Exactly.
As someone who kind of, again, I run the socials.
Yep.
I've never put a cent into them. I guess in terms of actual time, I put a ton of time into them, obviously, in terms of making content for them, kind of seeing what I can do better.
And we appreciate it very much.
Of course. And obviously, will I put money into it in the future? I'd like to. I'll be honest with y'all. Because again, spend money, make money. I always kind of run by the philosophy, I would rather put money into what we're kind of doing itself. Again, we built a whole set in this game. We cleared everything. You bought the mic.
Gotta get all this stuff down here.
That was not cheap.
Exactly.
No, it was not.
I guess if you want to calculate almost what it came to, almost $1,000.
Do we want to include show as well?
Yeah, I mean, if we want to count that,
Show $15,000
yeah.
plus $15,000
Plus.
Don't get me
plus.
that was crazy, Aaron. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry for your loss of your
Don't
Money.
Don't apologize to me. Apologize to my wallet.
But
You're pointing to Stosh for a minute. I was like, why are we apologizing to Stosh?
apologize to him. Why are we apologizing to Stosh? But yeah,
He didn't take your 16 grand.
Yeah, no.
again, money,
It was
connections.
17.
It's not easy. It's not easy. And none of this stuff is easy. But again, if it was easy, if anyone could make a hit song, if anyone could make a big movie, if anyone could properly utilize SEO, the internet, then everyone would be successful. You know?
True.
The fact of the matter is that we're out here sitting here in a basement trying to talk about what we think is interesting, and we're trying to make it big here.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. And with our social medias, from what I've seen, you said you were trying something new.
I was
with it
because I made the same kind of format for highlights for 5 months.
Yeah, and it
didn't work. It
would hit sometimes, and then other times it would be like,
the algorithm I just think the algorithm, and sometimes even just normal people, again, like people aren't. I'm not gonna say people are dumb. Like they just didn't know because it wasn't obvious what it was.
Right. There was a lot of them, and nothing against the highlights. Again,
right.
I've said they're great, fantastic, but of course, I'm going to critique too. Some of them with the context. I think a lot of context was lost.
I'd agree.
One of them that always comes to mind, and I know you said it wasn't visually interesting, but it's the one about the Ron Cameron, Cameron, can't you see?
Yeah,
your sports talk to hypnotize me.
Yeah.
There was a point to that because there was an old commercial that he did. It was for like a pest control company.
Right.
And he did like kind of a Dr. Seuss rhyme kind of thing going with it, and that was the bit.
That was the joke.
That was
yeah.
the joke, and then we did the Biggie Smalls thing, but the context for it was completely lost because there was another clip that you used. It was from the trailer for
right. And that's, I largely, and again, and a lot of the decisions that I make generally with social media is that I try to make it as short as possible.
That's what it likes.
Because again, attention span, I'm not trying to say people don't have them. Some people don't. But again, when everything is thrown at you, in this age where like you don't have to pay to use Instagram, it's just free.
Yeah.
Being eye-catching is very important.
Of course.
And I didn't want to, and again, like this is partially, I guess, look inside baseball and like kind of how we do things sometimes.
Sure.
And I guess Zazz can also kind of appreciate this too, is that, like I try to make things, I guess, as eye-catching as possible. I try to make the thumbnails that we put on YouTube kind of as eye-catching as possible. I try to make the titles and descriptions as fun and kind of weird as I can, because I don't want this to become just another random obscure podcast.
Which calls back to what you were talking about with the Emperor Lemon video. Highly recommend you check that out. His
Very fun, great channel, great videos.
Yes, his channel is Emp Lemon, EMP Lemon. Free shout out for him. I would love to have him on if we could find him.
Yeah, if we ever get big enough,
if
we could have him on, I'd love it.
Emp Lemon. But yeah, so he did a video series. It was called the YouTube Copyright Metagame, and also the YouTube Thumbnail Metagame. It was like
series.
Yeah, it was great. It was great, and it talked all about that. It's all about the eye catchingness and it not falling into the crowd, because you see channels, they're like the kids channels. They have the yellow background. They have some crazy character going or something.
Oh my god!
And it's got some really long title that's just it's meant to hit keywords. Those titles, sometimes you see videos that are like just these longest run-on sentence of all time.
Right.
But it's meant to catch a keyword.
It's a buzzword game.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly
SEO.
what it is. And but again, those kind of fall into the same category. So being able to stand out but also not blend in,
It's really hard.
it's a teeter game.
It's probably
Back and
what
forth.
makes
Back and forth, yeah.
what we want to do and what Zazz wants to do the hardest thing in the world. Is that you can have a product that you genuinely feel is interesting, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and write off the 2 years we did in the radio show.
Yeah.
Because we did have a lot of fun moments on that show. And I would argue that having 2 years of just that kind of experience was a building block for where we are right now. And we're going to keep building.
Exactly. So true.
If I can interject, I know I'll let you continue because I want to hear what you want to say here. But in terms of radio, and radio versus being a podcast on the internet.
Right, we're just kind of going every medium at this point. Movies,
we're
TV,
going along.
radio,
we lost the
YouTube.
theme and kept going.
I'm just going to name this thing Talking with Zazz or whatever. I don't know.
fine.
The Zazz
Even though he
show.
said the least, which I feel really bad about.
We've gone on for a long time.
We'll let you yap some more, Zaz. Don't worry. But with radio, especially on being on broadcast radio, you think about it. How many stations are on the AM dial in Detroit? Just speaking on the AM dial with music, there's 2. There are 2.
Really?
There's WPON, and there's another one in it's out in kind of the Canadian border. It's CKWW.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it's only music. There's no actual personalities or anything on there. We're competing also on the FM side too, and on the FM side, of course, there's a lot. I'm not even going to touch on satellite or internet radio here.
Right, that's a whole different thing.
Right,
that's what Zazz is actually more experienced. So we'll let him talk about that.
But just terms of broadcast radio, how much did we have to compete with? There was we were a morning show in the afternoon, but a lot of the morning shows, of course, when we were doing it, they're all done. They're done for the day. You just have your normal DJs that are on and doing their thing, and we were kind of this on the AM radio in Detroit. We were kind of this just this enigma there that people listen to, like, wow, this is weird, I can get into this. Some people, of course, didn't, which is okay. For every item on the menu, there's someone willing to buy it. And we did. We had quite a significant following, which was surprising for the station that we were on. But again, we didn't have that much competition. Let's turn it over to the internet. How many podcasts do you think are out there right now?
An unfathomable amount.
Tens of thousands.
Right.
Unfathomable.
There are so many, and you're not fighting over a dial. You can't just click over, do a little
you have
scroll.
to search us.
You have to search.
You have to find us.
Right. It is a needle in a
haystack.
Very large haystack.
Right. And I do want to switch it over to Zazz because I do feel awful that he hasn't talked a ton on this podcast so far. But your station, you do is on internet radio. And I guess I would like some insight into kind of how that all works.
Yeah, so actually, don't worry about talking a lot. I mean, this is your guys' show, and eventually I'm going to have you guys.
But you're the
on
guest.
mine.
You're the guest.
Zazz,
come on.
But I know I'm the guest. I am the guest, and you guys are the host. And so ultimately, this is your house. But hey, I'll speak about the internet. And so the internet is a very dangerous place. But no, more
a lot of child touches.
More about the internet media and stuff like that. It's very much of a struggle because what you do is you say, "Aha, I'm radio." And so the radio bros, they say, "Are you sure you're one of us?" And we say, "Well, yeah, we are." And they say, "Well, how many listeners do you got?" And we say, "That's a good question." Because we don't really have as advanced a means of tracking metrics. I can't speak for every internet station out there.
Of course.
What I will say is I entered the internet radio and I said, "Hey, how many listeners do we got at my time?" "We don't know."
Yeah.
You don't know? Yeah, we just don't really focus on that.
PON was like internet listeners you could track, but as for on the air, the owner did not subscribe to what's called Nielsen. Nielsen is it's for broadcast radio and TV. It's basically what gives you your ratings. All the major market stations, including the one I'm at right now, WHMI or not, future proofing. We have sort of Nielsen Light, but it's from the FCC, and all stations have it, so it's the same thing. But the big market stations have Nielsen, and Nielsen will tell you your ratings. PON didn't. we could track our 10 internet listeners, and that was it.
We could track whoever was listening to our show through the Buzzboard page.
Oh yeah, the Buzzboards too. Yeah, but it was all word of mouth. Right. You have people word of mouth like, "Oh yeah, I was listening." I could be lying. Just make us feel better. I don't know. But anyways, sorry I interrupted.
No, it's fine. No, but the whole idea is that, we're just a small college, and that's what a lot of these internet stations do. Hey, we're a college radio station, and so we're going to primarily do the internet. We might do some, I think Spring Arbor University has some FM channel and stuff like that, but typically
my college does.
You say,
we have a
radio station. Yeah, so you say, okay, if you're strictly on the internet, you're probably just a small station. It's like the whole podcast thing. People have to actually look you up. And then imagine that you say, hey guys, listen to my radio show. Here's the link. And you send them to the college website. So they're like, oh, great. It's not even the real radio. It's just some college. And so not only is it's hard to find, but it's kind of like you're valued less, which, yeah, I know I'm a college student, but typically the only people who are listening to you are mom and dad, and that's if mom and dad are free. And
so sometimes you're Zazz. You're fantastic.
Thank you, dude. I love you too, but see, I can't tell that you guys listen to me only because I have no way of tracking that.
Just take
metric.
my word for it.
I'll take your word.
Trust, bro. My source. Trust me, bro.
But no, and so. You just turn out to have, as I made the joke when I came on WPON, 2.5 listeners and a pet cow. And then the occasional 3.5 listeners if you have a good friend who is willing to say, okay, I can take an hour out of
And
my
a dead
day.
fish.
So true.
Well, I mean, with you guys listening, not only do I have a pet cow, but I also have a pet dog with a shotgun. But
yeah.
Hey,
about-
topical bull records.
we don't talk about him, apparently. But the whole point I want to make is that with the internet radio, you get a severely small group of people listening, and it's only just you in there. You can have guests on and stuff like that, but it's not, like, what's the motivation for the guests coming on, right? They don't really take it as seriously, and some people do, but then they're like, well, who's listening? And so it's more of like this becomes more of a hobby rather than like an actual commitment. And then I've had this happen to me where I say, man, no one's really listening. You lose motivation, and then the show quality starts to go down because you're really doing it for no one and stuff, you know. And difference between this and a podcast is with the internet, once it's out there, it's kind of gone. Maybe you could get it recorded on a base somewhere, but other than that, if you're doing it small operation like I am, there's no one really tracking it down. With the podcast, it's like, shoot, once we put this up there, unless we take it down, it's up there. People are checking it out. So there's that constant pressure and motivation to, you know, have a semblance of professionality. I will say, though, with the upside, because I've been complaining a little bit about internet radio, the upside to it is you could have some fun with it.
Oh, yeah.
You could be like, I can experiment with this because probably no one's listening, or I can experiment this because only a small amount of people are listening, or because no one's going to hear this again, and so I could say anything I want to and no one can, you know, get me in trouble to a certain degree,
Rick.
and so you have that kind of fun stuff, and that's why I've been able to talk about some politics and religion, and I talk more about religion than politics now. But what I eventually say is, I say, hey guys, if you don't want to listen, that's okay. I mean, you're not going to find me anyways. But if you want to listen, you know, you have a show you can go to, and if you want any feedback, you want to give me feedback, you know, you can let me know anyway how. I mean, you could put it in a package and send it to my house if you want to. I can't promise I'll open it, but you know, you guys can give me feedback anyway, and I can kind of grow with you. And so, yeah, you don't get as many listeners, but you know, it's a kind of a growing experience, and it prepares you for the real radio. Because now I'm going to announce it probably on my radio show if I haven't. I just got really put on air for W4 Country,
Very
5
cool.
a.m. in the morning.
Let's go.
So early, but you know, my radio experience on the internet radio prepared me for that. So I would definitely say, if you're starting out in the business, start out on the internet, and then kind of and do it with the school. Start on the internet, go with the school, and then start working your way up, because it just gets more complex. And like you mentioned in, I think, one of your first episodes on the podcast, that, you know, there is a stress when you flip open that mic. There are people listening.
Sure.
There's no post-production. There's no going back. And I know with the podcast there is, but you guys even, I mean, from what I understand, is I don't hear cuts when I listen to the episodes.
There's
cuts, all right.
There's cuts.
There's cuts.
I'm just so good. I'm just so good at covering them
there
up.
was one part in the Cars podcast that we did that we had to cut out.
Yeah.
Which part, Shane? Which joke?
Do I say it?
Do I have to cut this one again?
No, we're good.
I'm not going to say
We're
it.
gonna leave you.
but,
We're gonna give you less work.
Okay.
Let's
But
go.
Zazz, there was a point in there that I do kind of want to end it on, because I did really love it, is that when no one is listening, that's kind of when you feel the most free to do whatever you want. And I think that kind of speaks to, like you said, obviously we did a radio show for 2 years and the world didn't listen.
Yeah.
That's okay,
Right.
because we did it for the love of the game.
We had fun. Of
course.
It was a
had
vibe.
A ton of fun doing it, and were we stressed? Of course. We wanted it to be big,
Yeah.
but you know, and especially
And the fun
Do you want to tell what one of the hosts that's still on there right now, Motown, A Cup of Joe, Crystal Mayo? What did she tell us, Bryce? You probably know it too.
I was there.
yeah, we were all there.
We were all there. What did she say to us on one of our? It was like one of the first few shows that we did.
It wasn't the first few. It was in the summer, or it was
Okay,
like it was
it's
a
a
show
little bit
where
later
I
on.
was back either on a break or
Yeah.
in summer or something. And she said, "You know, you're never gonna make it big at WP1, right?"
Yeah.
And again, that was exactly a year ago, I think, around this time, actually, if I remember
Right.
correctly. And I kind of looked at you and said, "We need to start this podcast."
Yeah.
That was the second time she told us, though. My first show, like literally where the first show came from.
So the third show.
my first show. So the third one, she looks at us and she goes, "Man, you guys are too bright for this. Move on to podcasts or something. Get with your time."
Which at the very beginning, when we were
didn't
first
listen.
starting to do this show, of course we didn't listen, sure, but in some, at least this is how I of course I love Crystal. I've been working with her with the with the Hazel Park kids, which that's gonna
that's just done. So
yeah, that's
there's
all.
no way to
That's
re-listen
all done.
anyway.
That's all done. But anyways, no, I've worked with her before. I've with her show, and I've been on there on Sundays when she's doing that, and she's had guests on. Met tons of great artists. But it's when she first said that, I was kind of like, wow, really? Like, we're just getting started,
Yeah.
It was kind of like a kick in. It's kind of like a kick in the balls, right?
Yeah.
It's you were first getting started, and you guys are great. Don't be here. Like, and this is something we were starting to kind of roll a little bit.
Yeah, because after we
snowball was starting to grow.
put 2 years worth of work where our show, like, from it, not just a technical but also like just pure listening and our talents,
Sure.
did get better. Like, I personally have learned a lot doing that show, just in terms of voice acting, in terms of how to be a proper host, in terms of all this other myriads of stuff that I wouldn't have been able to do if I did start with a podcast.
Right.
Like, can you imagine if we just started with a podcast and they kind of
Oh.
sounded like what our early radio shows were?
Oh, of course.
Oh my god!
Terrible.
That would have been awful.
Atrocious.
So, in a weird way, you need to fail to succeed. You
Sure.
need to have no one listening to take risks, take chances, and get messy. Like, sure, Zazz only has 2.5 people and a cow listening and occasionally
Right.
a pig, but
Yeah.
and
Bolt.
and Bolt. Listen, Bolt's always listening.
Yeah,
but
he's always there for you.
At the end of the day, what he's doing is super cool because, for one thing, sure, no one was listening, but it landed him a job.
Yeah.
His work and effort, despite when things were down, were able to make him successful.
Of course.
We put 2 years of work into this nonsense, and we're still here.
It's led to a podcast, and for me, I've moved on. Actually, I moved on to WHMI. I might not still be working there, future proofing. But as of right now, it landed me. I'm doing part-time weekends right now. But I ran the board, and I was on the air during the Heartland Memorial Day Parade.
Oh, really?
That was
No
coming
way.
through, and they had the Box of Rocks that was down there. It's basically this like trailer that they take. It's got big speakers on it. It's blasting WHMI all the time.
Oh, that's
And of
cool.
course, they were doing the guest appearances. But I was in the studio, and during the parade, they had the box that was driving down and had WHMI on. And I was in the studio and I was on the air and I was thinking, all of those people down there at the Heartland Memorial Parade are listening to me. They're listening to me.
Don't mess up.
yeah, don't mess up. No, it was a lot of pressure too. But it's just thinking about WPON, and of course they didn't have any kind of promotions
They don't
or
care.
anything. You hand them money, you go on the air for a couple hours and
Call it a day.
you have fun. But yeah, those 2 hours every
Every Thursday, and then eventually every day of the
Every
weekday
week.
for 2 years.
it all culminated to get me a job. Stosh, of course, got you a job. Of course, we didn't get you the job. Your thing got
No,
you. the job.
WPON got in the
Yeah,
job.
it got in the
Oh,
job.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
thanks,
mentioned
guys.
WPON. Oh, they were handing you the resume. You were all set. The
They were on their
application-
knees,
begging, but no.
fuming.
Yeah, fuming. They were fuming at the fact that you weren't here earlier. But no, it's exactly what you were saying. Yeah.
But I do think, to kind of wrap this up, because we have been going for a while, the best way I think we can wrap this up is that, guys, for anyone out there, this isn't just like a creative thing. Don't be lazy.
Yeah.
Because it may seem like your hard work isn't going to pay off right now. In fact, you probably won't see the fruits of your labor for years if you're doing stuff like this. Most stand-up comedians take years and years of honing their craft before they get their first like televised special or whatever, or their first Netflix special now or whatever. We're probably not going to after this episode, we're probably not going to light the world on fire with what we're saying. Yeah. But what we are going to do is we're going to keep at it. We're going to keep working. We're going to keep getting better. And I think we're going to get there someday. And Zazz is already there because he has a job. But Zazz, thank you so much for wanting to come on the podcast. We've wanted to have you on for a really long time. So thank you for bringing up this phenomenal topic that's kind of snowballed into basically every other aspect of this weird industry we're in that we're kind of passionate
But it
about.
wrapped back around at the end, and it worked.
really did.
It really did. So thank you so much for coming on. You're always welcome on the podcast if you want to come on again. Any final words before we execute you?
Yeah, sure. I want to say, really, I guess my best thing I wanted to say about this is man, you guys talked up me a little bit. Someone talk you guys up for a sec. I think what makes you guys different than other podcasts is a lot of people your age, when they do podcasts, they sit down, they say, we're the experts on the topic we're talking about, and they look like a bunch of ignoramuses. They look like
Pretentious
idiots.
hacks.
And now we all look like idiots when we sit down and talk like this, but you guys own it. We own it. And it's funny because the arguments, everything like that, I mean, it has such an appeal, and there's a uniqueness to it. Really love it. I want to thank you guys for having me out here. First to Charlie for being so quick with responses, handling this. To Aaron for really clearing me the first time coming on here along with Charlie. For Brice, I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't see Brice's story.
You're welcome, everybody.
Well, yeah. Shane, I came on here because I wanted to make you look like a sane person. Now, I don't know if I did that,
person.
but
You're
so I want
more
to thank
sane
you
than I
for
am.
allowing me to help you look a little sane. But
Thank you. Even
thank
though
you
I am
guys for
sane.
inviting me on. Love to have you out in mine, and we'll see about what happens.
Shane, I can't wait to re-edit your audio to make it sound like you are not sane at all.
hey.
You forget who's got the
Make it
master
sound
control.
Wait. Make it
Listen,
sound
Aaron, I
like.
have 2 words for you. Demonic filter.
Oh, can't wait.
No, you
Anyway.
gotta auto-tune it.
Yeah, but if you guys want to catch more Demonic Filters, aka other episodes, we have a ton of other available right now, and we would love for you to listen. I'm Charlie Robinson. Aaron, I don't want to say your name. It's your show.
Yeah, no. Well, we'll go around the room.
We'll go around there.
Yeah.
I am Brice Guskovic.
I'm Shane Siegel.
I'm Zazz.
So tired. He's done.
Get me out. How do I know these people?
As soon as Aaron says goodbye, press the end button, please.
No. So mean.
It'd be funny, though.
Can't wait. Shane, I'm going to press your mute button.
Absolutely not.
Dude, he's
Gone.
What are you talking? You don't have control whether it adds. Aaron, say your name. Hey,
Places
whoa.
my hand
Whoa,
over the
whoa,
board.
hey,
Hands off the board, you dirty ape.
Don't make me get the flying monkeys. I will.
Anyways, and I'm Aaron Gresser, and thank you for staying after hours. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Double After Hours podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Be sure to check out our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I'm Aaron Gresser, and thanks for staying after hours.